You know, I love me some Golden Axe. It was one of the earliest experiences I had with sword and sorcery, and one of my earliest experiences with beat 'em ups. That's honestly appropriate because Golden Axe is pretty ancient. It's one of the first games in its genre, having been directly inspired by Double Dragon, and quite like Double Dragon before it, it's a slow-paced, brutal game of skill, all about making micro-decisions. Despite the title's simple appearance, its mechanics hide a world of depth, and at high levels of play you'll be controlling the enemies as much as your own character, simply through minuscule adjustments in your spacing. Every encounter is rich with personality and potential, as you steadily peel back the layers of mechanics and design, seeing clear through to the game's core. But we're not here to talk about Golden Axe's game design today, we're here to talk about its weird story. So, Golden Axe is a pretty popular title. It's not as well loved as Final Fight or Streets of Rage, but it has a firm legacy, and that legacy has surprisingly little to do with the actual Golden Axe. Sure, in the game's narrative, the Golden Axe is a mighty weapon forged by the gods themselves, and your end goal is to retrieve it from the villainous Death Adder. But as near anyone can tell, it just doesn't exist in the game proper. None of the axes you encounter on your journey are golden in hue. Gilius wields a silver axe, Death Adder wields a dirt brown axe, and the two palette swaps of Death Adder wield another brown axe and a green axe respectively. But hey, at least the basic storyline follows, right? Death Adder, the reptile titan, is pillaging the land, so we must defeat him and return prosperity. Well, in the arcade version that's how it goes, but in the Genesis release, there are those aforementioned palette swaps. One of them, titled Death Adder Jr., is mentioned directly in the manual as an underling to Death Adder, but he only appears in beginner mode here, and beginner mode doesn't even feature a story. The second palette swap is Deathbringer, who is Death Adder's supposed mentor and the final boss. Problem being, neither Death Adder Jr. nor Deathbringer have any backstory to speak of. Their place in the greater universe is completely uncertain, and they clearly just exist to give the Sega Genesis version of the game more content. Confounding the issue further, both Deathbringer and Death Adder Jr. got action figure releases in the early 2020s, cementing their presumably canon status. So what I'm trying to say is, Golden Axe's continuity is bafflingly weird, even by arcade game standards. It can't even keep the plot elements promised in its own title straight, let alone anything beyond that. But hey, to begin with, this game was always a pulpy romp inspired by 80s action flicks. Its story and tone are less a matter of considered consequence and more a mood-setting backdrop. Golden Axe has little interest in being a genuine dark fantasy, as is illustrated by its gloriously cheesy end sequence, wherein its characters burst free from the arcade cabinet and run amok in the real world. Its sequels do a far better job at forging a consistent narrative structure, but the focus is always on pure campy fun. That said, I'm still rightfully confused by the inclusion of Death Adder Jr. and demand to know his relation to Death Adder. It is haunting me.